All right, we are live on LinkedIn and YouTube. Hello, everybody. Thank you so much for joining. Today, we're going to talk about a really important subject. We're going to talk about cyber hygiene, cybersecurity, and how do you come up with a score for data supply chains. We're going to have guests on the show. We have Andrew McIlwrick, a service delivery manager at Differentia Consulting. We'll have Nikhil Kamboj, founder of DataBox 360, and Kaye, senior regional development executive at Gallagher. So I'm super excited. And again, thank you so much for joining. Let me know, what kind of work you're doing in the cybersecurity space. It's always interesting to hear what other people are doing. And, let me know where you're tuning in from. I'm going to go ahead and check to make sure the stream is up and working well. All right. So like I said, cyber hygiene, cybersecurity, really relevant, really important topic. Looks like everything is working just fine with the live stream. So I'm actually going to go ahead and bring in our first guest, Andrew. Hello, Andrew.
Hi, Kate. Thank you very much.
Welcome to the show. How's it going?
Thank you. So I'm reporting in from sunny Scotland.
Scotland. We've got an audience in Scotland, actually. They might be joining us. So you'll have your neighbors in the show. So I think, let's get started with those who don't know Differentia Consulting and are not familiar with you. What's your story? What do you do for Differentia Consulting, and what do you do as a company?
Okay, sure. Yep. So I joined Differentia Consulting last year. We're an Oracle Gold partner, but more importantly, an Elite Click partner based here in the UK. And I'm a service delivery manager in the firm. We offer the full range of services, including training, business consultancy, end-to-end services, the whole range that you would expect from an Elite Click partner. Some background as well. I'm sure you'd be interested to know we were formed in 2002, which was way before I joined. But the background to that was some of the senior managers in the firm were as consultants, and specifically JD Edwards, Oracle JD Edwards. And in that time, there was very little in the way of good reporting. And the consultants at that time chose Click as a vendor to provide the solutions that we're going to be talking about today. And we've actually been working with Click ever since. We're now an Elite partner. We've been an Elite partner for 10 years, which is quite an accomplishment in the partner world, especially in the UK. We've got 30 plus staff here in the UK. We've got 150 field consultants available in a network to add in extra resources for projects as we come along. Two of us are, myself included, and Adrian Parker, are Click luminaries, which I think you're familiar with the luminary program in Click, which is an awesome recognition of Differentia Consulting and what we do. We've also grown quite a lot in the last few years as well.
Yeah, that's amazing. So congratulations on
being in Wales, but we've now got an office in Scotland.
Yeah, congratulations first of all on being a Click luminary. I hear it's kind of a big deal, so that's awesome.
Thanks.
And
yeah,
you
we're now covering the three corners of the UK, which is nice. Yeah.
Yeah, and you guys go way back with Click. That's very interesting to learn. Wanted to ask now, where all these companies are dealing with COVID-19, how has that transformed the way you operate?
Good question. Yeah, thanks. And obviously everybody who's listening in today, really hoping everybody's keeping safe and well with their families, working from home. It's a very difficult situation. We've actually been quite fortunate. We're very much BAU, and we like to promote ourselves as BAU. We're offering a lot of online services. We're doing online training, health checks, server upgrades, the full range of services again, and just general keeping in contact with our customers. We've got a dedicated customer care team and our service delivery team as well, and we're just really keeping keeping everything ticking over and getting a lot of really good sort of recognition from our customers that we are supporting them in these difficult times, which is excellent.
Yeah, absolutely. That's great to hear that you're mostly BAU. And you mentioned your customers. What exactly is it that you offer for your customers, and who would be your typical client?
Yeah, so when I joined Differentia, I was pleased to say that one of our things that we got recently was our 500th customer. And it's actually a US customer, so we've got 500 customers, and we offer the full range of services from managed services, training, consultancy, project management, cloud adoption. These are just some of the services that we offer. But I mean, one of the key points, and hopefully we'll touch on this later, is we're not just a license reseller. And one of the things I really got when I joined Differentia was that we are here to work with both customers and partners like DataBox. And a lot of people on the market are here just to do a quick license sale and walk away from their customers, but we're here for the long-term sort of end-to-end engagement, and hopefully you'll see that as part of the discussion today in the demonstration as well.
Yeah, absolutely. So you mentioned your partnership with DataBox 360. Can you just tell us a little bit more about that?
Yeah, so obviously we'll be speaking to Nikhil shortly. He's going to be doing a really great demo with the cyber hygiene application that we've built, and he can talk through it in a lot more detail than I can. So again, the DataBox 360, they provide cyber consultancy and security consultancy advice. What we've done in Differentia is we've combined our Click expertise, our smarter BI visualizations, and we now provide that on top of the underlying cyber data that obviously Nikhil will talk about as part of his presentation. The two worlds fit nicely together, and hopefully the audience will benefit from seeing both Click and the cyber data in action today.
Yeah, I'm really looking forward to the demo. I think, maybe now's a good time to bring Nick onto the stage and give him the opportunity to talk about DataBox 360. So, hey Nick, how's it going?
Hi Nick.
You are on mute, however. Let's get you.
Apologies. Take two. Hi everyone. Pleasure
Hello.
joining you.
Thank you for joining us.
So yeah, thank you for arranging this. It's looking forward to the healthy discussion.
Yeah, absolutely. I think let's get started with who are you, what's DataBox 360, and how have you decided to partner with Differentia Consulting?
Sure. So I've been in the industry, technology, cybersecurity for over 15 years, and I've kind of experienced working in the sort of cybersecurity compliance. I've been head of technology for a company, and after 15 years, last year I decided to change my career and set up DataBox 360 with another founder, and we both shared the vision, and we thought we will basically set up DataBox 360 to differentiate and provide cybersecurity consulting services. And we kind of saw a gap in the market where there's a lot of consulting companies, but the kind of stuff that we're doing in the services we're offering, I would say they're not off the shelf, and they're bespoke services. So from virtual CISO, Chief Information Security Officer, to Data Protection Officer, to ISO 27001. So trying to basically cover both security and compliance aspects, and help organizations basically comply with the new legislations and challenges. And then obviously we have several partners, and Differentia are one of our new, most kind of recent partners that we've added to the board. Very, very privileged to be working with them. And the cyber hygiene idea was basically it's to develop a product that's like a crystal ball that provides CEOs and other executives an easy way to get visibility of their cybersecurity strategy, cybersecurity strategy and the risks, more importantly. So we wanted to develop something from scratch, and this is where Differentia's Click expertise is perfect on that, because it talks to any data source. So we've managed to bring this to market with their help. So yeah, the shared vision.
All right, awesome. So you mentioned crystal ball. I've actually been looking for one of those. I know we're going to get into this a little bit later, but so it's called the Cyber Hygiene app, right? And it basically shows executives the potential cyber threats and risks that are associated with their company or also their third-party vendors.
Yes. So if you basically the question we had, or where I started kind of working on this concept, was can an organization instantly and non-intrusively measure the cybersecurity reputation using a simple algorithm, a simple method, and not just their own cybersecurity posture? I mean, have the organizations got enough information and tools to be able to make better decisions, to make decisions instantly? So this is where we wanted to bring in the cybersecurity reputation kind of scoring model in. And we also, with this app, it basically it gives the power to tap into your cybersecurity intelligence, not just externally, but internally as well. So for any organization that we will deploy this, or we're deploying this, they can quite easily integrate their internal existing tools with what their image looks like from external. So I think the easiest thing to compare with will be when we had the credit ratings come in, when we try and do business with each other. You want to appoint a new contractor or a vendor, a third party or a supplier, or even someone that you want to do business with, and we all look at each other and say, well, how reliable, how financially secure this proposition is going to be, or a relationship, and that's the first thing you look at. And I think that's where we are, 2020 and going forwards. That's going to be the new business norm.
Absolutely. Okay, great. Thank you. Thank you for that introduction, guys. I think at this point, I'm going to bring in Christian, where we're going to talk about cyber insurance, and then I will bring you back in, Nick, to do your demo. And, for those who are tuning in, we're also going to do a Q&A panel at the end where everyone's kind of going to jump back in and answer all of your questions. I am looking at the comments and questions that are coming in throughout the session and capturing questions for the individuals that we've got here. So thanks, Andrew and Nick. We will see you soon.
Yep.
Thank you, Kate.
All right. Okay. And Christian Kaye from Gallagher.
Hi.
Hello. Welcome to the show.
Kate, how are you?
I'm doing great. How are you?
Yeah, excellent. Really good. Yeah, it's nice to put a shirt on for the first time this week.
As long as we're all wearing pants, man. Okay, I keep seeing that people go pantsless. So, Christian, why don't you tell the audience a little bit about yourself? Who you are, what do you do, what's your role with Gallagher?
Yeah, of course. Well, my name's Christian Kaye, and I work for Gallagher. Basically, I'm responsible for business development management across central London and the southeast of England. I've worked at Gallagher since 2015, working in that role, working with our partners. Gallagher's are one of the largest insurance brokers in the world, but in the UK, we're the largest independent broker, which gives us a significant sort of advantage. And we work with all the major insurance companies to design secure insurance solutions and also risk management programs for our clients, and basically make sure that they've got the correct protection for the risks that they're exposed to, either it be in the world of liability, material damage, terrorism, business interruption, but clearly in the world of cyber, which is very much an emerging risk.
Oh yeah, absolutely, and I don't think it's going to go away, probably likely ever. So I know you've sent over a slide. I'm going to go ahead and share my screen now, and maybe we can get into a little bit about what exactly is cyber insurance and what kind of things does it cover. So
yeah, absolutely. So this slide is basically a slide that we've been able to produce that dictates and outlines some data from 2017. Obviously, it's taken a couple of years of claims washing out and everything else to make sure that data is accurate. But in 2017, the cyber picture was that. Now, I won't go through that in great detail because everyone can obviously read it. But there are some interesting statistics on there, certainly as sort of takeaways. I mean, in terms of cyber insurance itself, for a long time, and it still is actually, it's referred to as cyber liability, which is really a byproduct of where it came from, because the first cyber insurance products were actually developed and developed by professional indemnity underwriters, which naturally meant that they were focused on third-party exposures, such as passing on computer virus to a third party, and then subsequently being sued for it.
Right.
However, today, these days, it's pretty clear that actually the vast majority of cyber events tend to cause financial loss to the insured themselves, as opposed to third parties they deal with. And so, given that cyber is predominantly a first-party exposure, cyber policies are actually now much more akin to traditional property and crime policies than liability policies, which have become a little bit outdated with the world of cyber.
That's very interesting. So, how big is the market for cyber insurance?
It's absolutely massive. I mean, it is evolving, almost week by week because of emerging threats. Now, we as Gallagher, we've got relationships with all of the biggest insurers in the UK, certainly those that are regulated by the FCA. All of the major insurers, have cyber solutions. Some have standalone packages. Others will just bolt it on as an extension to general commercial combined insurance policies. But basically, there are so many different wordings available. It's really about tapping into the insurers that understand most the cover, understand the requirements, understand the needs, and then can design a sort of suitable solution accordingly.
Right. Okay. So basically, as a broker, when it comes to assessing a client's cyber risk and setting the premium or deciding if you're actually even going to pay out, what are the kinds of things you're looking for?
So really, the thing is, it's when I'm looking at a new prospect. For example, if I'm looking to place insurance for a manufacturer, for example, Kate, I will go into that premises that will be full of plant and machinery, and I'll say to the owner of that business, what are your health and safety plans? What's your written health and safety objectives? What are your business continuity plans, etc., etc. If the owner of that business says, well, actually, we don't have any of that. We don't have any security. We don't have any of these procedures and protocols. We just want insurance for all that plant and all that kit. I will then, as a broker, go to the market, have a word with an underwriter who will say, well, actually, based upon the information you provided, Kate, we're not really looking to get involved here because the client hasn't taken this seriously and they don't have the risk management protocols in place. So really, it's a case of turning that on its head and actually saying to the underwriter, well, actually, the client has got involved with some cyber hygiene. The client has incorporated that cyber hygiene and the cyber risk management within the health and safety program, so that chosen underwriter can then come to the table and say, okay, great, this is fantastic. The client's serious about the exposure. We like the positive narrative from Gallagher. We want to work with you, create a long-term relationship with the client. The rating of that cyber policy, therefore, is hopefully competitive. And actually, in the event of a claim, there are no nasty surprises because the underwriter is fully aware what the exposures are and what the what the protocols and the mechanisms that the client has put in place are. And so, therefore, it's a trusted relationship, and hopefully, claims get settled.
Yeah, absolutely. That makes complete sense. And for most people, we know that practicing good hygiene, good personal hygiene, is good for us. Can you talk about what are some of the benefits of practicing good cyber hygiene?
Well, cyber hygiene is undoubtedly huge and can be easily quantifiable, in my opinion, as having a direct positive effect on the success of a business and sort of retaining the required efficiencies across that business. I personally think it should be treated exactly the same way as other risks within a risk management program. It should be included with the annual written health and safety audit, which will be in place for all sort of businesses with over 5 employees. The real key thing to it, though, is that any business looking to review their cyber insurance should do it with an independent insurance broker. There are insurers out there that you can go to direct, and they will offer you, they will review your insurance and all the rest of it. But what insurers won't do is that if there's an emerging risk that they can't quite cater for, they won't have that discussion with you because they can't provide the solution. So to engage with an independent broker who can assess the whole of the market on your behalf, you can then get an informed decision about what it is, the exact requirements that you need. And so, I would suggest a full cyber review with an independent insurance broker, and then you and your colleagues can make an informed decision exactly the best way to protect that exposure.
Okay, so I guess step one is getting a picture of your cyber risk by going to an independent broker and then working with an insurance company to see where you can protect yourself, right?
Absolutely right. Yeah.
Awesome. All right. Well, thank you so much for hopping in here. I think we're gonna flip back to Nick now for more talks on cyber hygiene and a demo. So thank you so much for joining, and hopefully you'll be able to stick around for the panel questions at the end.
Yeah, absolutely, Kate. Yeah, no worries.
Okay, thanks. All right. I'm going to go ahead and bring Nick back to the live stream. Hey, Nick, you're still here.
Hiya. Hello again.
Hey. All right. So, you might have heard we touched a little bit on the topic of what exactly is cyber hygiene, but let's get your thoughts on it. How would you describe cyber hygiene?
Sure. Yeah. So how we see cyber hygiene is basically, as we were saying earlier, similar concept as your credit rating. I mean, what is your online, what is your digital, what is your reputation online when people look at your business externally? How basically strong, how do you stand when it comes to your cybersecurity strategy? and cyber hygiene in general actually just defines your cybersecurity posture externally. Obviously, we're going to go deep into defining what it comprises of, because there's no silver bullet when it comes to defining a cybersecurity posture or measuring something. It's based on several factors, and we've decided to use, and one of our key partners, a security scorecard, and we use their engine to basically bring in the scoring, and that works on 10 different factors, and that's, we're going to look at that when I show you the live demo. But cyber hygiene application that we're developing, what we're basically focusing on is it basically depends on, or is based on 4 different pillars, and I'm going to bring in a slide, if I may.
Yes, absolutely. There's your slide. So 4 pillars that make up cyber hygiene, right?
Yes. So I'm going to go into detail into those 4 pillars in a second, but this is just to put it into context. I mean, where we are, what Christian was talking about earlier, why, what we're doing is important, and what the solution kind of does and provide to the CEOs and other executives. So these are just some of the latest stats, and I've tried to collate these from the latest sources as well, and yeah, that's just to highlight where we are. So I will put that back on now. So going back to the 4 pillars, we do believe cyber insurance, compliance, third-party vendor risk management, and your business continuity. So we believe these 4 different areas is what the cyber hygiene impacts on, and if you practice good cyber hygiene, if you're basically on top of your cybersecurity strategy, you basically doing what you need to in all those kind of areas, then you stand a much stronger chance of having an acceptable reputation. So I haven't come up with the term, because excellent for someone isn't the same for another organization. So if it's acceptable or not. So those are the 4 different areas of cyber hygiene. And talking in detail on each of these, I mean, cyber insurance obviously is a growing market, and organizations that can demonstrate that they are managing their exposure will be able to argue improve premiums, and insurance will see them as a low risk company.
That makes sense. Just like humans who take better care of themselves have lower premiums for insurance, right?
Exactly, and I think we've seen that from cybersecurity side as well. That people, because it's still a new area, and initially there's more a finger in the air, but now there's set algorithms, and the brokers and insurers are looking at these cyber reputation, cyber hygiene scores before they would set the organization's premium, and rightly so, because now there's a set formal process, and there's a basis, and it's transparent. Right. Second one's compliance. Obviously, cyber hygiene rating and score demonstrate compliance. It helps organizations basically keep track of whatever regulatory compliance they need to comply with. It could be ISO 27001. It could be HIPAA for the health sector. It could be GDPR. It could be Privacy Shield. So from compliance perspective, it enables you to have a transparent view of where you are.
There's no regulations to comply with. So.
Exactly. Yeah. So if whether you breaking any kind of any of those areas, and you may be subject to any penalties, so that it definitely helps in the compliance area. And then you've got business continuity, because again, we talked about having a look at your own reputation and your own score, as we'll see in a minute. Then what's also important is look at your key suppliers, and you basically, you can look at where the exposures are. You can look at the vulnerabilities in advance, because the app shows you exactly which are the areas out of those 10 different factors where you need to be managing your security policies and strategy, and not just yours. You could basically dictate that to your suppliers and third parties as well. That, guys, we can see you're weak.
Absolutely. I think, quickly before we move on to the demo, one thing I wanted to remind people, it's in the ticker on the bottom, but you can actually fill out a quick form on cyberhygiene.uk. I'm going to put that link in the comments right now, where you can book a free one-on-one session and explore your own cyber hygiene. But Nick, let me know if you're ready for the demo. And as you're sharing screen, I want to remind the audience that if you have questions throughout the demo, or questions for the prior individuals that were on the show, please put them in the chat, and then we're going to address them basically after this demo. So
sure, I'll cover the last one on that very quickly before we move to the demo. And I think it relates to, it's to do with the latest threats that we're seeing, where, especially in the COVID-19 and the current crisis situation, we're basically, there's three different areas where we're seeing where exposure is high, and there's access to company network, because most of the organizations are working remotely. We have to be mindful that the CISOs and the CTOs, their worst nightmare has basically come to life, and something, if you would have asked them in advance to prepare for, would have taken at least a year with external help to prepare for, and they have actually made it possible, giving their their workforces, in a lot of cases, access within weeks. So that means there's exposures that need to be looked at. And phishing attacks have gone up as well because of the situation we're in. It's just a psychological, natural behavior. Humans are more susceptible. And then quickly, the supply chains, because we're seeing a lot of vendors who are just not being able to provide their services. So this is where, again, there's exposure is high, and the app gives you a quick ability to just add a new vendor as a backup. So now we can move to the demo.
Now I'm really excited. Let's do this. You're going to share your screen now, right?
Yeah. Let me know when you can see the screen.
Let's see. Not yet.
So there you go.
Okay, I think it popped up just now. Here we go. Adding that to the stream. And so I'm actually going to remove our faces from this stream just because it enlarges the view. We're still here, FYI, for those tuning in. All right, Nick, take it away.
Brilliant. So this is the so in the live demo, what we're looking at is we profiled and we scanned and studied 500 of the top listed companies. We didn't want to go for FTSE 500, FTSE 350, 100. So we went for the top 500 companies. And the data that you're seeing on the screen is basically their cybersecurity reputation scoring for those 500 companies. And as I mentioned, we use a security scorecard engine to provide us with the data on the scoring. And how it works, as you'll see, is A-rated companies are, we'll say, and we believe are acceptable. So you will see that the top figure on the left is 52% of the companies are actually below the A rating. And the rating works from A, B, C, D, and F, as you can see on the very far right. There's a scoring from 0 to 100 based on your...
Nick, what happened to E?
Well, it's American scoring system, so there is no E, unfortunately. And I think what we say is A is acceptable, B, you're okay, C and D mean you're kind of far down the poor or kind of worst, and then F is more of a failure. So
class again. I get it. That's what happened in class. So.
Yes, but good question. Yes. So 52% are actually showing below A rated. So that's a bit of a concern. And then that's actually 253 of the companies we scanned. And then we saw 47% lied in the B and C category. And again, you can see the numbers on the right. And then 5%, which is 24 companies, are actually in the very low. And I would call them, as a cybersecurity consultant, I would say they're the ones, if I was a hacker, I would be looking at where and who and what vulnerabilities can I expose, can I exploit, Sorry. So that's the top level view, and then you'll see the risk findings at the bottom left, and that is that's showing the number of total findings, the risk findings that we highlighted using the app, and they're broken down into three. Obviously, the high severity ones are the most important ones and need to be addressed like yesterday. Medium severity, and then the low. And based on the company's size and the severity of the vulnerability or the issue, that affects their scoring. So that's the quick breakdown. And one thing to highlight, as I was saying, D and F rating is we security scorecard claim that anyone with those scores are 5.4 times more likely to suffer a consequential breach as compared to the others. So move to the sheet number 2.
Okay, so those rated lower are kind of like attractors to people who want to attack your systems.
That's correct.
Got it.
So then we move on to the second sheet, where what we're now showing is each one of those 10 different factors.
Mm-hmm.
And we're looking at network security, we're looking at DNS health, patching cadence, endpoint security, IP reputation, web application, qubit score, hacker chatter, leak credentials, really interesting, and social engineering. So each one of these criteria have scoring algorithms, and then based on the issues found for each one of the organizations, their scores are worked out. And you can see the breakdown. I mean, network security, there's 55% of the companies in that particular risk factor were B to C rated. So endpoint security, there was 10% in the B to C. Let's pick up the high number. So we can see the DNS health is one of the most common issues here, because 32% of the companies are actually rated D and F in that specific risk factor, which is, if I was one of the baddies, that's the area I would start basically digging in and trying to make my way in. And that's basically, it could be because of your SPF records. It could be because of, your other configuration issues. So that's the...
Sorry to interrupt, Nick. Just had an interesting question from someone who's joined. Shrish is asking, what are the factors that are considered in calculating the ratings that we were talking about?
So the rating is basically based on these 10 factors, and what works out the score at the end of the day is it does take into consideration your digital footprint, how big the organization is, your severity of the vulnerability. So if you are basically allowing remote access into your network, that's pretty high risk as compared to some of the other vulnerabilities that you may pick up. And we'll look into some of the most common ones. And I think at the moment there's, as I was saying earlier, the current climate, remote access is one of the big issues. So yeah, it looks at all of them. And then one of the new additions is the leak credentials, which any breaches that happen, and if any of the employees of the organization are using the company IT credentials to log on to those, their credentials have been leaked out and they're available in online to basically exploit. So there's loads of different elements that will form your score. I hope that answers. I'm happy to pick up on the comments separately.
Yep, absolutely. Yeah, I think that answers the question. Thank you.
So then comes the sheet 3, and now what we're looking at is a test case where we looked at Differentia Consulting, and as we're working with a partner, we in last 6 to 8 weeks we were working with Differentia to have an impact on the score. And I think when the initial score was a bit lower, and within the last 6 weeks that has gone up to 98. And you can see on the right, I mean, this basically, this diagram will show you quickly and what are the ratings in different areas. And ideally, we would like to see this gradient kind of here, so we can see quite quickly.
Cool, so this is built in Click?
Yes, it is build and click.
All right.
So on this side, again, you can have a quick glance on what are the key issues where we can have the missing scores, or how many. It shows number of issues, and every score has a different weightage. So we can actually try and get to the 100, which is very rare and hard work. And as I said, it depends on your size of the organization as well. Let's move on to the next one. Now, we looked at the FTSE kind of listed 500 companies. Then we've looked at a test case, how we can, what's the journey of the cyber hygiene if you decide to choose that, and then how you can have an impact on your score. Now we're going to move to another case study, which is what we've done is we've profiled all the National Health Services trusts in the UK, and there's this score that you see for NHS basically comprises of all the trusts. And as you may know, in 2017 they were hit by a series of ransomware attacks. So the collective rating of NHS is pretty good at the moment. But the point is the cyber hygiene score good enough? Because that's where we look at the vendors. And on the left-hand side here, you'll see now what we've profiled are their main suppliers. And we've tried to break it down into different areas so that it gives a simplistic view. And we've anonymized each one of those companies because we didn't want to name and shame anyone in public. But these are the individual scores of the 2 financial suppliers NHS trusts use. These are the 3 medical suppliers, mainly where they buy equipment from, anyone who may have access to their network. Non-medical, and these different categories. And what we've then done is we've taken an aggregate of each category, an average score, and that is what we've displayed here. And then the 74 is the
start with an A at 95, and once you look at who you're working with, it decreases by 21 points.
Exactly, yeah. So this, for any other organization, you would imagine if we implement it for the manufacturing, as Christian's saying, then that'll be the manufacturing company score here and all their suppliers in different areas underneath. And that'll give a quick overview to any executive, as we really need to look at our technology suppliers. And in specific, I want to look at this company. Why are they so low? That's a direct exposure, and we need to fill it like now. And that's where this comes from, which is the average of all the individual areas. And what we are highlighting here is that your cyber hygiene, your score needs to take into consideration your own score plus your supply chain.
Right. So we've got an interesting question that's come in. Does this cyber hygiene assessment actively monitor your client's exposure to the risks, or is it assessed only when the client requests?
No, this is actually, that's a very good question. And that's actually one of the strengths of the cyber hygiene app. It's instant scores, and I wouldn't say it's truly real time, but it is much better than the traditional testing and supplier management processes where you would send out a questionnaire or you would do a pen test once a year or maybe twice a year. But this is actually every 72 hours, the scores are being updated. You have instant access to the scores. And every time there's a change in the digital footprint, whether it's yours or your suppliers, these basically scores will have an impact. And what we're building into the app is proactive alerting that if you have, and I'll show you on the next one, which
so I can get an email or a text message if something happens.
Exactly that. Yeah. So
awesome. That's what we need.
So that takes me to the deep dive into the vendor analysis, as we were looking at on the previous slide. If you look at in the middle graph, basically you'll see what the movement has been in the last 30 days in your supplier scores. Now, this supplier has basically dropped 22 points in the last 30 days, which tells me that there's a big concern. There's something not right. I need to look at. I need to pick up the phone or basically get them to look at. And on the power that you have with this is that you'll be able to tell them exactly the areas they need to look at. As we've seen with Marriott, with some of the recent attacks, it's really hard to pick up on some of the breaches sometimes, or the vulnerabilities that you're being exploited. And we've seen that they're only announced, months, if not, a longer period after the actual event or incident. So this basically gives you a very quick glance, and you can see, obviously, Differentia has made a positive impact, +3. We can't really name anyone else, but there are other, and this is what I would be looking at if I was looking at the vendors to manage. And this
so the next
graph
change if their cyber hygiene is improving or basically degrading, right?
Exactly.
Okay.
And it gives you as deep as you want to get into the scores and there, but what we're trying to do is create a top level view for the executives to be able to take quick decisions in those situations. And it also gives quantifiable data, because we're, as being a CISO, virtual CISO, being in those shoes, you sometimes struggle to quantify your theory to the executives. And at the moment in COVID-19, we may be experiencing where we're having to deal with CFOs a lot because everything's really tight. So this tool gives you quantitative data quickly that, guys, we really need to do something here because here you go, there's been a drop. So just worth highlighting. Now I'm going to pick up one particular company, and I'm going to get to the next screen, hopefully with an excellent bandwidth and no lag.
It's been really good so far. So
yeah, Click is amazing, and I'm a big fan. So yeah, that's kind of just showing the strength where it's gone straight in, and now it's showing one of the individual vendor scorecards, and it's showing areas of there. And this graph gives me a very quick view of how they're doing. And I don't like this shape, so I like a nice and circular.
Right.
If I'm a CISO,
a big circle, right? You don't want a small circle.
Absolutely, a big circle in all areas, and then that's where you can dig deep, and you can see some of the issues that it has highlighted in the high severity section. There's HTTPS and a few of the very common ones. Patching cadence comes up a lot. This basically monitors the browser and the desktop and your server operating system kind of patching cadence and how good an organization is in keeping it up to date. So that's basically a very quick proof of concept of what the Cyber Hygiene app can do.
This has been really, really cool. Thank you so much for sharing this with us. I think one thing before we go into the panel discussion and start addressing everyone's comments and questions, who would use such an app, right? Is this for every type of company, or is there, is this for the bigger organizations?
Well, this is again, thank you. A good point, actually, because this is another strength of the Cyber Hygiene app, because there are some off-the-shelf solutions available where you could buy licenses and you could start monitoring yourself and the other apps. So what we've tried to do is try to break it down and pitch it to everyone. And that's where, as DataBox 360, our goal is to not just have the cybersecurity tools for the bigger enterprises and larger companies who can afford. We basically designing something where you can start from if you just want to have self-monitoring with 5 vendors, or you can even just start with self-monitoring to keep an eye on your compliance, where you keep getting, or you can use it for your commercial proposals that, guys, look at this. So yeah, in short, for everyone.
Okay, awesome. Thank you so much, and thanks again for that demo. I'm going to go ahead and bring Andrew and Christian back on for the panel. Hello, thanks for sticking around. We do have some really great questions, and I know we probably have about 10-15 minutes left of the session. And for those who are still watching, feel free to put your comments and questions in the LinkedIn chat, and we'll try to address as many as we can. If you have further questions, like I mentioned, you can actually go to cyberhygiene.uk to get your one-on-one free session to get your cybersecurity score. So I think let's start with a question here from Scott Lloyd. He says, "Hi, Nick, have you been asked to do this on your client suppliers for second-party auditing purposes? And do these suppliers have to agree to these assessments?"
Good question again. That's the beauty of this tool where, yes, we've done that, but you don't have to announce. So they are completely non-intrusive tests. And that's why the methodologies that the Cyber Hygiene app is using with the security scorecards help is it's completely non-intrusive. So it's unlike the pen testing where you're having to agree and even tell them, could you please whitelist our IP, because we're going to be sending you a lot of test signals to see how robust you are. No, it's actually, I mean, what I've seen with most of our clients is that you're the one who are telling your vendor that, guys, you really need to look at that. Or when it comes to their performance management, your vendor risk management process, you hold their hand and you helping them, being sometimes the bigger company, helping them manage it.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you for that. Question for Christian. Would the cyber insurance space be able to use a tool like DataBox 360 to look at the risks and be able to price out the premiums and make decisions based on that?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, we as brokers don't, because it's the insurance companies and the reinsurance companies and the actuaries who set the cyber rates. Those guys will use similar software to look at prospective clients, their cybersecurity, their weaknesses, their exposures, and rate it accordingly. Which, in my opinion, is why for a company serious about managing their cyber risk and going to market and getting a costed risk transfer solution, i.e. a cyber insurance policy, to do the cyber hygiene exercise beforehand, basically way and above is the best way to get the best rate in the market to cover your cyber insurance effectively. Definitely.
Okay, great. Yeah, thank you so much for that. We got another question here from Shrish, who's asking how much of AI or machine learning is being put to use to predict cyber attacks and the place for cyber attacks. So because she says that, this could be a search for vulnerabilities over and above the due diligence for compliance. So not sure who wants to take that question.
Go, Nick.
Another two-pronged answer, maybe, Nick and myself.
Yeah, of course. Andrew, do you want to start?
Okay, yeah. In terms of from the Click perspective, the Click tool is great because it's got inbuilt features inside the product for looking at insights into data. The vendor's heavily investing in the machine learning, artificial intelligence. There's lots of ways to extend the product through the APIs and extensions for R and Python. So whatever the data sets that we can consume is available for the users to consume. But I guess Nick can probably describe the actual how the security scorecard works.
Sure, it's another good question. I think this is where the third generation analytics, as they say, is there's a lot of advanced machine learning algorithms used when we look at. I mean, there's the whole scoring is based on the data we get, which is available publicly. In most cases, then if a company subscribes to it, they can subject their internal network to it as well. It's based on the active sensors and the passive sensors. And this is where the advanced machine learning algorithms who basically put two and two together, and they will tell you if you've got exposures in this and this area, you are, this is how high risk you are or a medium risk you are. So yeah, absolutely. I think this is the beauty of the security scorecard engine, that they use advanced machine learning techniques, and some of them are patented and very well recognized in the industry. And there's three main data sources where things come from, and there's a threat market, which is basically pretty famous, and threat market collects data on IP addresses and the digital footprint of most of the organizations. And there's like a 1 or 2 billion, don't quote me on that, updates that we get on a daily basis that keeps us up to date. And then there's data sharing partnerships with other security companies that help all companies in the partnership to keep their data up to date. And finally, the open source intelligence information, and that's again available. So I mean, you saw the hacker chatter, you saw the leak credentials there. We even consider and tap into the dark web and see who's talking about which company.
Yeah, that's very interesting. Thank you. So we got a question here from Kurt Broman. He's asking, he says that there's currently a cybersecurity skills gap, which presents a security risk in and of itself. How does this app and the use of AI tech in general help to mitigate the shortages experienced in the cybersecurity labor market? Have you guys seen a trend like that?
Absolutely. I think it did come up on one of the recent CISO webinars, and yes, there's I think a few million kind of vacancies open at any time on the cybersecurity sector, and where CISOs struggle and any organization struggle is that we cannot compute and manually cover these things internally if we have to do all of them manually, which means you need bigger teams. So apps like these would definitely help, and not to cut down on the cybersecurity workforce gap, but initially it helps the organizations to still manage the cyber risks, because you can see everything that's happening, whereas you may have a team of 10 working it out and presenting it in a report.
Okay, got it. Thank you. So question from Deepak wants to know, how secure are databases in today's world where we have lots of cyber attacks, and what are some techniques that are being used to make databases more secure?
Interesting. Now that's depends which context we're talking about, and we see a lot of, I think one of the there's a lot of SQL injection attacks still happening. It's actually one of the most common threats when it comes to where we score companies, and then even a lot of websites still have the XSS kind of SSA vulnerability still open, and it depends. I mean, how far you go with it, because in this current context, yes, it still very much is. You'll be surprised how many companies don't do the basics and don't get the the basics right. So yeah, I can elaborate on that just much as the time, but yeah, happy to answer in detail in one.
Yeah, no, I think that answers the question. Interesting question here about cyber score changes, and if people can see the email or text messages in advance. I think you mentioned that there are alerts you can set up in case your score or your vendor score has had a significant change, right?
Yes, absolutely. Andrew, would you like to say something on that?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, the click product we demonstrated, which was ClickSense, does provide that level of alerting. And it goes back to what we discussed earlier, that the threat landscape changes every day. Well, Differentia score is now currently 98 because of all of the improvements we've made as an organization. That could drop next week, as could any of the insurance companies or any of the NHS trusts that Nikhil was showing. So people do have to keep an eye on these scores on a daily basis. It's that real time. We do have to start driving this cultural change that you cannot just sit back.
Yeah, absolutely.
Wait and stream.
I think culture is a big part of it. You're right. All right. So, question here from Shrish asking, if AI is used, how would you qualify the factors to be tracked as an output from AI?
I think this is where, as I said, the advanced machine learning algorithms are they're tested and approved prior to put in use. Where when I can send you a detailed paper on how exactly they work, but they're patents. So we use Security Scorecard Engine, and they're got patent on some of these technologies. Where and it's pretty much becoming the norm of the industry. So I'm not worried about the accuracy of the machine learning algorithms. It's more of the analytics behind it, and it's written by the experts, where and not just the CISOs. There's analysts, researchers, and the algorithms are put together where they basically take into consideration all the factors and then give the score. And it's proven, and I can quickly put a slide on screen if I
may. Let's do it. Let's get your slide up. Why not?
Let me share my screen.
Sure. We've got a lot of questions coming in, by the way, guys. I know we have about 6 minutes left.
That's great.
Yeah, people are loving your discussion, so thank you for doing this. All right, we've got your slide up on the screen.
So this is just a very quick overview. I mean, I think a lot of you may have heard about this. It was on 31st of March, Marriott announced the data breach, and what we are seeing on the graph is the scoring. And I've tried to depict Marriott's score in blue as compared to some of the competitors. You can see the cyber hygiene score, or you would call their security scorecard score, has been consistently around even lower than D, between D and F, as compared to some of the others. And then you even see, and you'll have access to similar intel when you're using the app, who's actually dipping in and out, where, and that we definitely want to be looking at any of these curves and see what exactly has just happened there. So what I'm trying to say is that we all know that they got attacked. We all know this is, and with the cyber hygiene app, we can go back to 12 months off the score, and it picks up everything from, it even records if the data breach has been announced, and it'll pick it up from ICO or the relevant body in whichever country you were using it in. So all of that public information is there. Your contextual 12 months data is there, and you can see it's easier then for forensics. Where did we go wrong? But flipping it on the other side of Marriott and my vendors, I would have picked up the phone, as soon as I would see them somewhere around here.
Right.
So just to hopefully helps with the question slightly.
Yeah, absolutely. It's always good to get a visual. So thank you for that. All right, I'm gonna go on to the next question from AJ. So he asks, can this solution directly tie into an orchestration solution to leverage this risk management and protection? So stuff like incident response, can we tie those in together?
Interesting. Yes. I mean, what we're working on, and I think there was one of the points later on, is integration. Where we are seeing the use of the engine at the moment is we've integrated one data source with security scorecard into the cyber hygiene app. What we've seen is Splunk being sort of SIEM solution gets plugged in, and you see straight away that's where your forensics and your all your logs and your important information in that time would come in. And similarly, you could then plug in your Archer, your GRC tools, anything you want internally. And that's the beauty of Qlik, where it's so easy to plug in the APIs and connect and make sense of the data sets. Hence, we've gone this route. Absolutely help with that aspect of your security incident management.
Right. I know we have a couple of minutes left. So one of the questions I really would love you guys to answer is, you showed us some companies that have scores that are ranking kind of on the lower standpoint. Are there any quick tips and best practices that you can share to try to get their scores up?
You mean the common pitfalls, or?
Some things to avoid maybe, and some things that they can do to help improve their scores.
Sure. Yeah, absolutely. The most common ones, I've seen personally, are the patching cadence comes up a lot, where I would suggest that keep on top of your updates, whether they're to do with your desktops, your servers, your browsers. They are all important. So if you're an executive, or every CISO does, and that's where a lot of companies they fall back. Then there's DNS, where we're talking about the SPF records, and that's where basically SPF records stop I won't say completely stop, but they help you defend your organization against the phishing attacks. So SPF record is something that you would set up on your website, and if you configure that correctly, they'll not allow any unauthorized emails coming in. And then we see, we was saying about the web application security, the cross-site scripting and or SQL injection, or leading to SQL injection attacks. That's another one which comes up very, very frequently, and that's something that quite easily be filled in. And then lastly, I would say on network security, a lot of people are still not using encryption, or you'll see the SSL certificates either not configured correctly or not covering all your domains. You may have your primary domain covered, but your digital cyber hygiene reputation actually takes into consideration not just your main domain, but any other associated domains you have. So look at these 4, and I think you'll have a big spike in your score if you're using this.
Perfect. All right. Thank you so much for sharing those actionable things that people can do to help improve their scores. Now, I know we are at time, so I'd like to, thank you guys for joining the session. I think it was really insightful. We've got a lot of great comments and questions that, if you do have a chance to go in there and answer the questions on LinkedIn, that would be great. But maybe if we just go around and let people know where they can contact you if they do want to follow up. Maybe Christian, if we start with you.
Yeah, of course. No, it's been great to be involved. So thank you very much indeed. I have a LinkedIn site, obviously, Christian Kaye. But if you want to email me direct, it's Christian_Kaye@ajg.com, and I will happily have just a chat with you and see how we can help ensure and better protect your exposure.
Great, absolutely. Thank you so much, Nick. You want to give your
Sure. Of course, yeah. You'll find all the details on the cyberhygiene.uk website, and we also have the Cyber Hygiene LinkedIn page, where some of you may have subscribed to the link from. And our website is databox-360.com, and my email is nikhil@databox-360.co.uk. So
Great.
Thank you for joining us.
Andrew?
Thanks, Kate. Yeah, thanks for hosting again. Yeah, same as other guys, standard resources that they've already mentioned. Obviously, pleased for consulting and what we do with DataBox 360, not just in the cyberspace, but beyond into other areas of technology as well. So yeah, thanks everyone, and thank you in these difficult times for joining. It's a really great forum for these presentations.
Absolutely. Thank you again for joining us live, and thank you to the speakers. Just a quick reminder that if you want to stay in touch, do follow their cyber hygiene page on LinkedIn, and a reminder that if you want to book your free one-on-one session, go to cyberhygiene.uk, where you can explore your own cyber hygiene. All right. Thank you guys for tuning in, and I'll see you soon.
Bye.
Bye. Thank you.